All right, in this lesson, we were going to use Photoshop to make a demo. So we're going to look at something called Type on a Path, which is a little clunky in Photoshop, honestly. We're finally going to take a look, more close look at the Magic Wand tool, and then look at some ways of continuing to make complex masks, which I know everybody loves doing. Once we have the logo made, we're going to look at what file format we'll want to use to bring it over to Adobe Premiere Rush. And with Premiere Rush, we're going to make a goofy 30-second long video. Okay, let's get started. Like on many of ours, we're just going to open an image. So I'm going to go to Open. I'm going to navigate to wherever my doggo is. I've got this nice quick AI generation of a dog, and I need to select out this background. I could try remove background, and what we find out is that it doesn't work very well. So like we can see like little bits of green in here. And if I try the, let's undo this. If I try select subject, what we've noticed is that I basically get the same thing except as a selection rather than a pre-made mask for removing my background. And like, here, let's bring that back up. I could zoom in and I could grab, quick select tool, and I could try to start, removing these areas. And like, I could make my brush smaller, and let's try that again. And like, it's still leaving a lot of green in there. And like, now I'm losing some of the yellow, and like, it's not going to do a good job. And I could go through with the lassos and draw it manually, or I'd use the brush to paint it in manually, and it's going to be a struggle bus. Now, luckily, we have an ancient tool called the Magic Wand tool, and it's pretty old. That's perfect for this. And how the Magic Wand tool works is I can set a sample size, I can set a tolerance, so like how different it can be, and any pixel I click on, it will select everything similar. Now, when I have anti-alias on, it will try to deal with that soft edge between these pixel lines to make it so it's not a hard pixel edge, and grab some of those in between there. It's not perfect, but it's a decent job. And tolerance can help push that further one way or the other. And then contiguous, right now, if I have contiguous on, and I click on this ear, I get just the ear. But if I turn contiguous off and I click on an ear, I get everything that's close to that color throughout the thing. So contiguous means it has to touch. And so in our case, everything touches in the grain, so it doesn't really matter. Same thing with sample all layers. It's like, am I doing this off a single layer or multiple layers? In our case, we only have one layer, so it doesn't matter. So now I have the background selected, and I want to remove it, so I need to invert my selection. So I did that by clicking my invert selection button, or come up to select inverse. And I will then click layer mask, and I've removed my background, and I have a nice clean edge on there. I'm going to relabel this layer Doggo. Next, we want to add in a circle to turn into our logo. So I'm going to come over to our hopefully familiar at this point ellipse tool. And I'm going to start drawing my ellipse. I'm going to click, maybe center on the nose. And then once I've started clicking, I'm going to hold down Alt so it draws from center. And I'm going to hold down Shift so it is drawing out from there. And I want a circle. And if you look next to my mouse, it's giving me a size. If yours is currently in inches, I want it to be about 24.4 or so. It doesn't have to be perfect. Or if it's in pixels, about 1,720 pixels or so. Yeah, it's pretty close. Color-wise and size-wise, got some colors to change. So right here where it says fill, I'm going to click. I'm going to click on my hue. That blue is a little too punchy for this, so I need to pick a more subdued blue. All right, for our RGB colors, let's go over to R, and let's do 106. And then for green, we're going to do 114, and then for blue, we're going to do 76. I got a number in there wrong somewhere. 106, 114, oops, 179. There we go, 179 for our, I was looking at the color for the next one. All right, 106, 114, and 179. We get a nice kind of subdued blue that really complements the dog. I think the stroke color actually is already the one that it needs to be. Let's go ahead and click on yours probably isn't matching mine. So let's go ahead and click on it and check the color and change it. And yeah, so we should have red 54, green 56, and blue 76. And I'm choosing these colors as a nice kind of color complement to the dog. And then they're also lower saturation, a little bit more subdued than the dog color. So it complements the design both in terms of color, saturation, and appearance. Like it's a good color choice. Drag it to be below the doggo layer, and then relabel it to be background, because that's what it is now, or logo background, or something descriptive so you know what it is. Now we need to tuck the dog into the tool. Now, previously, when I've done this, I've gone to the magic wand tool, and it hasn't. Here, it's turn off sample all layers. Oh, yep, there we go. See that? Like if I have sample all layers turned off, it doesn't. That's fascinating. So I can't actually use the magic wand tool on just a vector layer. So we'll have to switch to the quick select tool, and I should be able to. Well, let's hide the dog. Hide dog, and then just go over this blue. Now I've got that circle. It's interesting. Why can't I use? I mean, I know this before because it's written in the textbook. It's interesting. I'd love to know the programming problem of why I can't use the magic wand tool there with sample all layers turned off. Well, anyway, grab the quick select tool, paint this in, turn the dog layer back on, make the dog layer mask active. And what I want to do is I want to fill the surrounding area with black. So right now, if I filled it, I'd fill the center area. So let's invert our selection. So select inverse. And I'll go to paint bucket and I'm going to fill it with black to hide. And just like that, our little dog is in the circle. Let's drop our selection, Command D. Now what I need to do is I want to bring back just the collar. So I'm going to temporarily disable my layer mask so I can grab my collar, re-enable the layer mask, and then fill the collar area in on the mask white to reveal it. So step one, right click on the layer mask and choose disable. So this temporarily removes the layer mask. Next, I'm going to grab the quick select tool and I'm just going to paint over the collar. Oops, I went a little too far down. And if we look at this, we have the same problem that we had with our kind of selections at the start where it's messing up here in the fur. But we don't really care about that because it's just this lower section that we actually need to fill in. Let's re-enable our layer mask. So I'm going to right click on the mask and choose enable layer mask. And with my mask still active, I'm going to fill this in white to reveal this area that's currently hidden by clicking on the paint bucket and going to white. And now the collar dips below the design. Another way that we could do this to make it more three-dimensional is we could make the dog a little bit bigger than the circle and have it overlap up here and emerge from down here. But having this little kind of overlap kind of helps make it feel a little bit more lively and 3D. All right, I'm going to drop my selection, deselect. And I want to add in some text. Now, we're going to do a very basic type on a path. And if I was going to do a lot of type on the path, I would do this in, I would definitely do this in Illustrator because type in a path in Photoshop kind of blows. Okay, let's actually move everything down first. I'm going to shift click onto background layers so I have them both active, grab the hit V for move tool, and I'm just going to move this down because my text is going to come up here a little bit, and we'll actually expand the whole canvas out here in a second to fully accept the text. But for now, we're just going to leave it right here. Okay. Let's grab, let's go to Adobe Fonts and activate Alpharn. So in Adobe Fonts, we'll search for Alpharn, A-L-F-A-R-N, Alpharn font family. Mine will already be installed. Oh, maybe it's not. I haven't installed it on this computer. So I'll click Add Family. And it'll take a hot minute for it to go through the Creative Cloud app and to install onto Photoshop. Once I'm in Photoshop, let's open up our character panel. So mine's already still floating around from a previous chapter, but if yours isn't, go to Window and go to Character, and that'll pop it open. And see, it already loaded Alpharn from Adobe Fonts, but if it's not there, type in A-L-F-A-R-N, and we'll grab Alpharn Regular. And then we are going to set our size to be 350. We're going to set our tracking to be -20. It's already there from a previous chapter. And we're going to click right here for our color, and we're going to do red 192, green 117, and blue 36. And what I did is I just sampled a color off of, let's see which one it is. Is that it? Yeah, that's it right there. I sampled this color off the ear for our text, so I'm using pre-existing colors. And I'll click OK. And then I'll make T for text tool active, and I'm going to make the background layer active. And then I'm going to mouse over. You see this little control point for it? I'm going to mouse over that until I see the squiggle. So right now I make a regular text, squiggle text on a path, and then area right here, this would be fill in the shape. Oh, and actually let's make sure we're on center paragraph alignment up here, or in your paragraph bar, make sure you're on center alignment as well. Oops, it reset my size. I wonder why it does that. 350, please. And I'm going to mouse over this center line. I've got my little squiggle, and I'm going to go click. I get a bunch of lorem ipsum, and I'm going to replace that with happy doggo. And again, if it goes off the side of the frame, that's fine. We'll fix that here in a second. Once you've got your text on there, go ahead and click the check mark to say, yes, that looks good. And then I'm going to grab C for crop tool, and I'm just going to give myself a bunch more room here to work. I'm just going to expand everything out so I can see all of it while I'm putzing around. Now we've got a little bit more spacing in here than we really need, particularly between the P and the Y. So like if we were doing real design work, this is where we'd come in and tighten that up with our kerning. But for this demo, we don't really need to putz with it that much. With Happy Doggo active, I'm going to go to the FX menu, and I'm going to grab Stroke. And for the color of my stroke, I'm going to click where it says color right here, and I could type it in, but let's be lazy, and I'm just going to sample off this blue line right here and click OK to load that. Stroke currently is tiny, so let's make it a little bit bigger. So I'm going to go over here and set my size to be 40, and I'm going to make sure that my size is set to outside. And then I'm going to click OK. So now I've got a nice stroke around there. All right, let's save this as a PSD. File, save as. And I'm going to throw this on my desktop so I can nuke it later. Yes, OK. Now we want to resize this to work for being used in Adobe Premiere Rush. So first, let's merge all of our layers together. So I'm going to come up to Layer, and I'm going to go to Merge Visible. And this is going to make it much easier to get it down to our initial size, which is we want to crop off the extra stuff. So I'm going to Command click on my layer preview right here. And something that's really neat about the crop tool is if I have an active selection, and I hit C for crop tool, or I click on it, it automatically snaps to the edge of that selection, and I can just hit enter twice, and I've got my crop. Neat. All right, so let's resize it down a little bit so it's not huge when we're loading it in, although it'll still end up being a little big. So to resize it, I'm going to go up to Image, and I'm going to go to Image Size. I'm going to, right here where it says inches, I'm going to switch to pixels, and I'm going to set the width to be 1500. And depending on how you laid out your exact image, your height might be a little different. That's fine. For resolution, let's go ahead and set it to 72. And then, oops, we have to reset this to 1500. I wonder why that didn't default to 72 right off the bat. It's a little surprising. So type in 72 here, and then next to resample automatic will be fine. Relatively rarely you'll need to putz around with these. So like when I do pixel art, I'll use nearest neighbor so I don't get any aliasing applied. For the most part, automatic will pick what you want. So make sure it's 1500, 72 automatic. Again, height will be variable depending on your actual design, and we'll click OK. Let's save two versions of this. I'm going to come up to File, and I'm going to do Save a Copy. And let's throw this in my Rush file section. I'm going to throw it in with my Rush files, and I'm going to save it as a JPEG. Badoop, badoop. And let's also save a PNG. And for those of you that were paying attention in earlier chapters, maybe you'll know which one we'll actually end up using. But one of these will be usable, and one of them won't. So I'm saving my PNG right now. And again, I'm saving that by choosing the dropdown. I can't say this enough times. If you type in your file format, it won't work. Eventually, you'll get fired from a job if you keep doing it, because you can't change a file type by typing in the file type. You have to choose it from the dropdown. Although that said, like if you mismake a file type, so let's say you had PSD chosen in the dropdown, and some student or someone else had typed in JPEG. And in your operating system, if you type back in .psd and it asks you if you'd like to switch the file label, you can switch it back to a PSD and you can reopen it. Still not a JPEG, even though you try to make it one. But you can, if you're canny and you can figure out what the person did, you can flip it back to the right type of file type by changing it after the fact. Anyway, we don't need this PSD anymore, so let's close it. And we are going to now switch to a program called Adobe Premiere Rush. So if it's not installed yet, pause the video and go ahead and install Rush. Okay, unlike Photoshop, this is actually a full screen app. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to click my little dot right here to full screen Rush. And then the first time you open up Rush, for some bizarre reason, and I wish I knew why, they give you a splash screen which is what this is. It's like a screen that you have to click through to get to what you're actually doing. They were popular in web design for a while. Nobody likes them because it's pointless. And so like we have a pointless splash screen here. If you go into design, please do not make splash screens. Just make a screen make an initial place that's actually useful. So now in order to get going, we have to click Let's Go. Now, what Adobe Rush Premiere is it's a pared down version of Adobe Premiere. And Adobe Premiere is complicated and hard to learn. Like if we opened up Premiere, we would probably spend like the first 1 or 2 weeks just really kind of putzing around with the interface. Adobe Premiere Rush is really easy. So that's what I like about it. The one thing I don't like about it is that it's a mobile app on a desktop computer. So like that's like for like Lightroom, there's Lightroom Classic, which is the one you'd want to use, versus Lightroom Creative Cloud, which is a garbage app. Don't ever use it. It's bad. And it's because it's the mobile version of Lightroom and it's not very good. Okay, so we're going to need certain files out of here because there's extra ones for the do-it-yourself. And in these files, we have a audio file, Dance of the Comedians, which is a really old recording that's in the public domain. So it's a little rough. We have the 2 files that we saved for our logo. And then we've got a handful of images over here and videos over here that we're going to use to make our video. So I'm going to go this one. I want you, dumb face in the grass, dumb face in the water, sleeping in the food bowl, stuck in the fence, and you chewed my carpet, dog. Down here at the bottom, I can change the project name. So in this case, let's do chapter 12, I don't know, doggo, stupid dog, goofy face. Yeah, whatever you want to call it, something stupid. Actually, no, I know what I want. I want Lee is a doofus because my dog is dumb in a good way. I can also click this little mark right here to change my setup. So like if I was doing video for like my iPhone, I'd probably switch to 4.5 or 9.6. But in our case, we're going to stick with 16:9 because we're running a wider aspect ratio on these guys rather than a portrait aspect ratio. And I'm going to click create. Well, not 16:9. This isn't 16:9. Leave it alone, basically. Okay, and it automatically lays these all out down here along the bottom. Let's establish a little bit of vocabulary about where stuff is. We have the home screen button. Hopefully this is obvious. It takes us back to the home screen. We have edit, which is the mode where we're going to make our adjustments. We also have share, which is how we export it out of this program. Please note that there is no save. This program is like Minecraft. If you log out when the creeper is about to blow up next to your diamond chest, when you log back in, your diamonds are going to get blown up. When you close this program, it remembers where you left off. Over here on the left, I can add in additional assets, whether it's more stuff from my computer or graphics and things like that that are built into this program. I also have access to my file box, which contains all of my assets. I'm going to collapse this back down because I don't need it open. I have a handful of tools down here. So like if I have a video clip going, I have a little pair of scissors to clip it open, which by the way is how you used to do this. You would have like a little film strip reel. And if you wanted to intersplice something in there, you would take a pair of scissors and you would literally cut the film and then you'd glue it in with these special little clamp things. It was terrifying. Then we have duplicate, then we have delete, and then we have expand audio. So like we can expand down the audio of our tracks versus just the audio from the music that we added. And then we have a little control right here, which we do want to click on. So we can see these additional things right here that kind of function like what we saw with layers in Photoshop. So I can turn visibility on and off. I can record new stuff down here for my audio tracks. I can also mute things and I can also lock it so I can't accidentally putz with it anymore. Right here, our main image, this is what we're going to call our preview monitor. And it is a preview because technically it's not the final version of what something is going to look like until you run it through the media encoder. So there can be shifts in appearance between what you see here and what gets spit out later, particularly if you're using fancier video editors like After Effects. Then we have our timeline, which is going to be everything that's down here. Our timeline is a timeline of events or clips or things that are going on. Then we have our video tracks or images or basically anything that's going to visually appear in my preview monitor. And then we have our audio track, which I think is pretty self-explanatory, our audio. Now we can have audio tracks attached to our video, but we are also able to separate those out or expand them out if we need to, which we will do later in the chapter. Over on the right, we have undo, and then we have comment, don't really care about that. Then we have add graphics. So these are things like animated overlays for text and things like that. So like when you're doing your own videos, you can drag these down onto here and you get these kind of neat little pre-made motion graphics if you want them. Doop. We also have transitions. Like this is how stuff transitions between in appearance. So like we have this snoring dog, and right now it just hard jumps to this other dog. And if we drag down dissolve, I'm going to mute my computer so we don't hear everything while I'm running this. And we click play, we can see that it moves softly now between the two, or like we could do like a wipe or something else onto that image. Let's do wipe up, boop. And we can see now that it wipes up rather than dissolves. Now, if I have a track active and I click on one of these, it adds it to both ends of it, which is really neat. I can also change the duration of it, making it shorter or longer using the sliders, or I'll also be able to do that by clicking and dragging down here in a second. We also have some pans and rezooms for kind of changing the appearance of stuff. We're not going to use them. We have image adjustments. If I want to change the way it appears, I can click one of these presets, or I can come up here to edit and take manual control over that kind of visual adjustment process. I also have speed up and speed down. So this is a way of making a clip go faster, or like I can use it to type in a duration for an image as well. Ramp allows me to slide it up slowly and then slide it back down as it ends. So like when I'm doing time lapses in these videos, ramp works really well. I can also limit it, what part of the clip it's running. And then I can tell it to maintain audio pitch, although usually for those, I just turn off the audio. We have audio controls. So like if I have one of these active, we can crack these open, and I have a bunch of ways I can modify it. So I can be like, this is actually music, this is actually something random, this is actually voice. And I have some Krug Smash buttons right here. And you can think of these as like that contextual taskbar in Photoshop, where it's like sometimes remove background works and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes these are fantastic, sometimes they are garbage. Sweetening sound would be a whole nother class. So if these don't work, you will need to look at something like using the more advanced audio controls in Premiere or Adobe Audition or another program. Finally, we have sizing and crop, which is what it sounds like, sizing and crop. Whew. Okay, let's do some editing. Now, when you first come over here and we start trying to move these things around, what happens is like this sticks with the audio, or it snaps to something else, and it's really frustrating. So I'm just going to drag this audio over a little bit to break it from these to make them easier to move around. And I'm going to drag this one up, and I'm going to, you see it connected? Let's actually drag that second one up first, and then let's drag that first one up. And so now I've got my two logos up here. Next, I'm going to grab my two static images, and I'm going to drag them to be after the one with the dog stuck in the gate. And I want the grass one first. Oh, look, it snapped in again. I don't know why it does that snap, but it certainly drives me up the wall. And so we have our two images over here, and we'll bring our audio back over. So this is going to be the rough layout of our video. We'll have a logo. We'll have the dog snoring in the bowl. We'll have the dog stuck in the fence. We'll have these two images. And then really what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this open, and I'm going to move the images into here. They can hang out here for now. And then we'll have the dog being upset about chewing my carpet, me being upset with my dog for chewing my carpet, and him being worried for no reason because he's a cuddly boy. All right, so let's take a look at our logos, and let's resize them first. So like we've got this one, and what we're going to do is we're going to drop the width right here from 256 to 130. And let's make the other one active, and I can make it active by clicking on it. We can see that that moves both this position in my timeline, and then also the playback. And I'm going to click into it so I have it active. Again, highlighted in orange for it to be active, and we'll do 130. And with these two, moving this playhead back and forth, we can see that one of these works and one of them doesn't. So we have a JPEG and PNG, and if you recall correctly, JPEG does not support transparency, hence the white box, while PNG does support transparency, hence the transparent. So I'm going to make the JPEG one active, Mr. Whitebox, and simply hit delete on my keyboard to get rid of it. So file formats do matter. Okay, let's adjust the length of our clips to get them to how long we need them to be to end up at a 30-second video. Because, no one's going to watch 45, 48 seconds of dog video. 30 seconds is a little bit long. If we were following current video trends, our video would have some sort of cut or change in it every 6 seconds or so. We're going to violate that a little bit here. Just because that's a little frenetic for learning how this program works. But like if you're uploading stuff to like YouTube or TikTok or Facebook Reels or whatever they're called, 6-second cuts. So like nothing should be on the screen without changing. And when I say change, I mean like confetti appearing or it changing to another image or something happening. You need stuff happening about every 6 seconds now, otherwise people will leave the video, which is weird, but welcome to how it goes. So I can see the position of this playhead over here in these numbers. So I have my total length, and that's referring to the length also of the music, and then the current position. And the current position goes minutes, seconds, and frames. And in this case, we can see that the frames cap out right when I hit 29, it bumps up to 0 again. And that's because it is using 29 and some change frames per second in order to create our video. Now I can move by frame by using the arrow key on my keyboard, and I can also jump to the end of a clip by clicking on these little buttons right here, or I can move a single frame by clicking on them as well. Now this is useful because I can move this to a certain play number position, and then I can have my clip automatically snap to it. In fact, let's make it a little bit easier to see what's going on. I don't actually need this open anymore, so I'm going to click the X. I don't need this open, so I'm going to click on the crop. So I've got my full width right here. Now let's zoom in a little bit. So I've got this bar, and I'm going to click and drag on the circle. So I have my video part of my timeline, not necessarily my audio, matching about the width of this, making this movement a little bit easier to dial in. And I'm going to move this playhead to about 5 seconds. I'm going to get it close because it's too irritating to try to move the mouse that precisely. So I'm at 4 and 28, so I'll hit right twice. And I'll get to 5. So however you have to move to get to there. Again, arrow keys or these secondary arrows in here. Now, if I mouse over the end of this clip, we can see I get a little arrow pointing. And if I click and drag, I can shorten that clip and it will snap to that little 5-second mark, making it really easy for me to do precise positioning. Next, let's move the playhead to the 13-second mark. So come on over. It's a little frustrating, as in other programs you can click in here and type it in, so you're not having to click and drag and then use the arrow key. But for whatever reason, you can't do that in Premiere. Not everything's perfect. So I clicked it over, we're at 13 seconds. I'll mouse over the end and I'll drag this over and it goes snap. Next, I'm going to change the duration and the speed of a clip. So I'm going to make the grass picture active, and I'm going to click the speedometer. Right now it's 2 seconds and 14 frames, and I'm just going to round this out to 2 seconds. I'm going to knock out those 14 frames. And I'll do the same thing where Lee is making a dumb face in the ocean. So just zero that out so it's at a solid 2 seconds. Next, I'm going to make the one where the dog is active on his back, and I'm going to reduce this length of it to 13 seconds. So right now it's at 23:13, and I'm going to type in 13 and then 00, dropping this up and also speeding it up a little bit. So you can see like the speed dumped up to 180. And now we are at precisely 30 seconds. And I can confirm that by clicking this, and it moves to the end of my track, not the end of my audio, but the end of my video track. And we can see that that position is at exactly 30 seconds. Next, we want to move the pictures just in kind of pacing to be in between these two. I'm muting this so we don't accidentally listen to a bunch of music. And I'm going to do that by moving my playhead to 22 seconds. And just like what I said earlier, which was absolutely terrifying to do in the old cutting room floor, as I'm going to cut my film. And I'm going to do that by clicking these scissors. Click. Oops, I had the audio active. I want this active. And now I can click cut it. Cut. I will then drag these two pictures in between them. Notice that it reorders and moves everything for me, which is very handy. Thank you, Premiere. I don't have to manually close those gaps. That'd be really irritating. All right, let's get our music to match. So I'm going to move my playhead to the end of this. So I'll just click end. Boop, jumps to where it needs to be at the 30-second mark. I'm going to zoom out by clicking and dragging on this circle in the scroll bar. I'll mouse over the end of my music and I will drag it over until it snaps to that 30-second playhead. You can error check by seeing that this says 30 and this one also says 30. So my play position's at 30, my total length is 30. I'm going to zoom back in and I'm just going to match, let's move it to the beginning. That'll make this a little bit easier. And I'm just going to match the width of this to my screen. And I've got a pretty big screen right here, so yours might be positioned in appearance slightly differently. And if we play the video, we can see we've got a nice rough. And if we're going through, we can't really hear the puppy snoring if we had the music. It kind of jumps around and it's not great. When we look at this, this appears a little off in color. So we want to come back and fix that color. We jump to the dog. The dog's worried because he chewed the carpet. And then he's going to make a dumb face. Make a dumb face. Be worried about the carpet. And then I'll say he's okay and he'll come up and want to be cuddly about it. If we listen to the music for the Dance of the Comedians, we would also hear a bunch of kind of horrible noise. So we want to do a couple of things. First, we're going to add transitions to everything, so everything kind of moves nicely as it progresses through. We're also going to fix the audio, and we're also going to fix the appearance of this clip over here. Okay, so let's animate our logo, because our logo just floating here is lame. So we'll click on the logo to make it active. I'm going to click on the lightning bolt up here to make that active, and I'm going to have it swipe on and off the screen by choosing wipe down. And I can just click this on in this case, and that will add it to both ends of this, which will look pretty good. So now if I play this little section of it, we can see we get a wipe and we get a wipe. And it also gives us time to look at the puppy sleeping in the bowl. Let's add transitions to all of our clips. And I want to add it to just the front of this one rather than all of it. So I'm going to actually click on, I'm going to click and drag fade to black to the start of this clip. And I want the fade to black to be longer. So either up here, I can type in 1 second, or I can also, that was 4 seconds, or I can click and drag on the end of it to change the length of the effect. I usually just like typing it in because it's a little bit more precise, so I'll do 1 fade. And now we can see when this starts off, it goes, here's my logo, puppy fades in, logo goes away. Nice little transition. Let's add transitions between all of these that are a dissolve. So I'll click on this one to make it active, and I will click dissolve. I will click on this one, and I will click dissolve. I'm not clicking on this one because it will be added to the ends of these automatically when I add it to the other ones. And I will click and drag a dissolve between the water picture and the second half of the worried about the carpet clip. Then I will also click and drag a fade to black to the end of the clip. For the fade to black this time, I'm going to set it to be 2 seconds long so it fades out nicely. So as I'm going through this, and I'm not going to replay the whole thing because it's a little boring, we can see that we have these nice little fades betweens or dissolves, and then at the end it fades off into black, giving a nice visual end to our video. Okay, so that's not too bad. Let's start working on some of our audio. So I'm going to make the music track active by clicking on it, and I'll come over to my audio controls. And it's going to automatically detect this as voice. It's actually music, but we'll leave it as voice because I want these controls here. So I'm going to turn on auto volume, and we'll be able to see it kind of stretch out this and move it around a little bit to kind of fix things. We're going to turn balance sound on, and it will kind of fix any left-right issues, although it doesn't do much in this case. We're going to turn reduce background noise on, and since this is like a 1920s recording, pre-1924 in this case, there's a lot of static in it from the record, and this will, although it would have been a beeswax cylinder back then. I don't know. This might actually be a beeswax recording. But yeah, instead of before records, they had these spindles that would basically be a cylindrical record. Would be an easy way to think about it on beeswax. They're cool if you see them. And that'll pull out a lot of the static, but not quite all of it. And we'll leave these two off because they don't really do much for this particular video. And that fixes a lot of the audio here. Again, this is pretty similar to edits that we would do as single buttons in Photoshop. They kind of work most of the time, and then when they don't work, they don't work. Let's adjust the audio of the clips themselves. So I'm going to expand out the audio, and I can do that by right-clicking and doing expand audio. And now I can see all of the audio tracks a little bit more clearly. And then I'm going to right-click on each individual one, and I'm going to do separate audio. And that drops down underneath here, so I have it as a separate thing that I can more easily control. And I'm going to come up to this one and I'm going to turn the clip volume all the way up for the snoring dog. So I want to be able to hear that dog snoring. For this one, I actually want to mute this one. So let's separate out that audio. And I'm going to click mute because I don't really like the sound of me talking to my dog in this case. Then we'll leave the audio on this one alone, and we'll leave the audio on this one also alone. That said, we want to add some transitions. So at the start of Dance of the Comedians, I'm going to go over to transition, and I'm going to drag up a fade to black. And this doesn't make a fade to black on it. It actually just does a volume control on it. And I'm going to set that volume control to 1 second as well. So it fades up in noise and then gets to full volume. And I'm going to do the same thing for Dance of the Comedians over here. Oops, not dissolve. I'll do a fade to black on this one. And instead of doing 1 second, I'll do 2 seconds to match on the other ones that I've done. So now not only do we have a visual movement between these, we also have an audio movement between them. Oh, there's a dissolve missing here. Add a dissolve. Thank you. Yeah, or actually probably what it needs to be is a fade. Black. Oop, there we go. Okay, let's adjust the appearance of the dog gate clip, because if we look at it, we can see that the colors are pretty far off, like particularly between this one, which had natural light, and this one, which also had natural light. This one was lit by some LEDs, and the light from them was a little off. Now we can kind of fix it, because there's actually color missing from those LEDs compared to natural light, but that's a different game. That's like a whole nother game. So let's go over to adjustments, which is the overlapping circles, and we'll go to edit to do a custom adjustment. It's a little dark, so we're going to add a quarter of a stop of light, 0.25. And we're going to come down to temperature, and we're going to do -36 to cool it off a little bit. And then we're also going to putz with the tint. And this is actually one of those rare instances where, oops, not +60. One of the instances where we remove them. Oh my goodness. 6. One of those rare instances where we move them in opposite directions from each other. And if we click this on and off of this toggle, we can see that it is a pretty dramatic effect and really kind of helps make it match the underlying video. Now, finally, just like in kind of Adobe Camera Raw, where these aren't edits that are actually directly applied to these, this is just kind of like a recipe. We need to tell Premiere to run Media Encoder and export it out under certain settings. So to do that, we're going to go up to Share, and we're going to change our file name. I don't know why it doesn't pull the file name from the project name. It would be really handy if it did. But Chapter 12, Lee is a doofus. Let's tell it where to go. I don't know why it defaults to documents. In my case, I'm going to throw it on my desktop. You can throw yours wherever you want. But I'm going to delete this here in a minute. And right now we can see that this is a little bit more than 1/4 of a gigabyte in size, which is huge. So if we crack open advanced settings, we can see that we can pick some pre-mades right here to kind of adjust what it's going out as. And if we want a nice small one, what I really want to do is I want to do 720, which is a very low resolution file. And then I'm going to switch the quality to low so it'll have high compression. And at 10 megabytes, I could probably text this to most people just fine. And I want to say 10 megabytes is like the cutoff for like if you want to put this on Discord. But if we start cranking up there, we will start getting pretty quickly into sizes that are no longer emailable without having to do special kinds of attachments. It would look better. But in order to get this out somewhere fast, like in a text or on Discord, we'll pick low, putting this down at 10 megabytes, which would be a very fast upload and download speed too. So you wouldn't have to fight that or use up a bunch of phone data. We'll go ahead and click export. And what it's going to do is it's going to render everything and spit out our finished file. Neat. When you're done, simply click done. And then you can close this program. Again, it's just like Minecraft. It remembers where you left off.
What is this? What did you do, Lee? Did you chew the carpet? Did you chew the carpet? Okay.